Assistant Superintendent, and I'm standing in for the Superintendent at this meeting.
I am Elaine House. I'm the Ombudsperson for Exceptional Education.
Elizabeth Minow, Principal Robbins.
Erin Levengood, teacher. Katie Morgan, speech therapist.
Elaine Manero, occupational therapist.
I'm Julie Ramirez. I'm the special ed teacher at Robbins.
Okay, and I'm Maria McPherson. I'm with the Exceptional Ed Department.
David Christensen, right?
Yep, we're Mr. and Mrs. Christensen.
Okay, great. Okay.
All right.
So we're going to start with a sign-in sheet, just a participation that
Yes.
just shows everybody is here.
And if you would please, your name, your signature, the date, and participation that you attended or participated. Get around. I also have a meeting notice for you to sign regarding this meeting today. This particular notice didn't get sent to you, but it is part of the IEP process that we have parents sign that they attended the meeting, and please check. You will come to the meeting and I've been given, provided with reasonable notice verbally, or actually we did it by emails. So we'll make sure you get a copy of that.
Without disrespect, I don't know that 9/11 last night was necessarily advanced enough notice that we agree with that statement.
Right.
Can he write a statement at the bottom of that?
Absolutely.
You can write an
Yes.
addendum there at the bottom. Can I borrow a pen? There you go.
Take somebody's pen. What time?
2111 is when it was sent. 2230 was when it was received.
Okay, so Elaine, do you want to go for the purpose of the meeting?
Yes, the purpose of the meeting is to discuss the compensatory services proposals that were presented by the district to Mr. and Mrs. Christensen. We want to present these proposals, and any discussion about the proposal will be welcome, and answer any questions, we can do that. And then at the end, our final objective is that Mr. and Mrs. Christensen, that you would either accept or reject, whichever, accept one of the proposals. And then we'll move forward with providing the services. And if I may, I'll begin.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay. What we have today are 3 proposals, and I will read through some of them, and I'll present them to you one at a time so that you can look through them, Mr. and Mrs. Christensen. I just made 3 copies, Dr. Morado, if you'd like to look through as I'm reading, and maybe we can share over on this side as well. Gave all mine away, didn't I? All right, the first proposal was written that TUSD would provide Clayton the entire compensatory services for academics, which is 1,040 minutes of academic services, which transitions to 17.3 hours of services at a summer school at Brifta Elementary. That's because Robbins does not have a summer school. Please remember, this is just the first proposal. We have others. Okay. During that time, we would make sure there was a special education teacher, not from Robbins, to provide the services that we need for reading, writing, and especially math, and along with other types of activities that the summer program would provide. Because initially we had thought that we would be able to provide the speech language services at Robbins and as well as the OT services at Robbins. Because of the time limitations that we have now, the proposal there before you says that we would provide the occupational therapy and the speech language therapy within the context of that summer school program. So right there in class, the specialist, the related service persons would come in and provide services according to the IEP. So it'd be an integration in the classroom. You wouldn't have a pull-out situation. You'd be right there to help him with his handwriting, whatever other skills that the IEP called for. Okay? That.
1 second, please. I need to say something.
Oh.
See what I mean? Okay,
That
I'm sorry.
No problem. That program begins June 4th, and it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. No sessions on Friday. And it's from June 4th through June 28th. And we outlined that he would receive the services within the context of that period of time. Okay. Do you have any questions? It was similar to the very first one, as I said. The only change would be that the occupational therapy and speech language therapy would be presented during the school day.
Not at this time.
We'll put that one aside.
Hey, real quick, just a personal thing. Is it possible to use my P.O. box on this instead of labeling our address?
Oh, okay.
We have a P.O. box because we don't receive mail at the house.
Oh, okay.
We're just concerned. We've had too many things not show up, lost in the mail, so we just went and paid the P.O. box. And thanks.
Can you give her the P.O. box?
Oh, yeah, P.O. box. That'd be a good idea, huh? 85495. And then the zip is just flipped. It's 85754 instead of 45.
Say that P.O. box again.
Sure, it's a long one. P.O. Box 85495. And then the zip code is 54 instead of 45.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. That way if you mail something, it has a better chance of ensuring that it's there,
Okay. All right, so that's one consideration. The next consideration, the next proposal, and I'm going to hang on to this one, I can see, but I'm going to let Dr. Morado see it. And just basically what it says at the top is, that all compensatory services proposed were in addition to Clayton's ongoing instructional and related services, so that we would ensure that Clayton receives a free, appropriate public education. I do have some other wording here. And at this second proposal that I'm presenting today is given a conversation that you had with Dr. Morado, that we would consider an alternate proposal for the 1,040 minutes of compensatory academic services provided by another institution, not TUSD, as long as it meets the following criteria. Excuse me, my mouth is dry. That number one, special education services be provided by a qualified, appropriate Arizona certified special ed teacher. That the amount of special education services will remain the same, and I will repeat myself, 1,040 minutes, or 17.3 hours of special education services. That the teacher would provide, the special ed teacher would provide direct instruction in the academic areas of on Clayton's IEP, which are math, reading, written language, reading, writing, spelling, and yeah, I think that's all he has on the IEP. The teacher will document the meeting times and lesson plans, activities taught to your son, and provide this documentation to TUSD so that we can make sure teacher is doing what he or she had been hired to do. The teacher will be paid at the current rate of summer teacher pay, which is $25 per hour, and that compensatory services can be completed by the start of the TUSD academic year. A lot of these, we do have some stipulations in the ADE corrective actions, and that is that we would work to have services completed as quickly as possible. One thing we want to do is not to delay any services to a student, to make sure that those services are presented. And so we do have a date in September that I have to report back to ADE regarding the corrective action. So that's why we're looking at having it completed before, or at least by the time school ends. So we can maybe negotiate that time. Okay, now this doesn't exactly speak to the compensatory services for occupational therapy or the language arts. I'm sorry, the speech and language, or occupational therapy. So we would propose that, again, these services would be provided by a licensed, certified, or a licensed registered speech language pathologist, occupational therapist, on our approved vendor list for TUSD. These would not be TUSD employees.
We get you some water, Elaine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. At this point, do you have any questions about this particular proposal?
Not at this time. The third proposal has to do.
Just have the one.
Did I send one over? Well, if you don't mind, Dr. Murado, I can kind of.
No problem. You go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. The third proposal comes after I had received a phone call from the Sylvan Learning Center, and after getting your permission, Mrs. Christensen, to speak to them regarding your son and the compensatory services. I did speak with Tracy McElfresh, and this is a proposal kind of crafted out of what our conversation was. There's two proposals. Proposal A says the district is willing to provide more academic time than the 17.3 hours at Sylvan Learning Center if you are willing to agree to waive the 2 hours of, or the 120 minutes of occupational therapy and the 24 hours or 1440 minutes of speech language compensatory services, which means that the district would provide you a total of 43.3 hours of academic services at Sylvan Learning Center, and there in parentheses is that just the addition of those hours. Now, this would be provided in lieu of or instead of, and if you're willing to waive the speech, language, and occupational therapy services. So in other words, we would not have any speech, language, or occupational therapy services, but those hours would be added to the academic minutes. Proposal B is that the district will provide 17.3 hours, and there's the minutes, of academic compensatory services by a qualified special education teacher at an institution outside of TUSD with the appropriate teaching credentials and criteria, or by Sylvan Learning Center. And that we would provide the 2 hours or 120 minutes of compensatory occupational therapy by a contracted vendor who's not a TUSD employee. And we would provide the 24 hours of speech language services by the contracted vendor who is also not a TUSD employee. So the differences between the two proposals is that one, obviously, as I said, would be the total minutes, 43.3 services, but specifically for academic services provided at Sylvan. Sylvan Learning has only reading services, I believe. And but what the second proposal there for B would be the breaking down the minutes. 17.3, but with at an institution outside of TUSD.